What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant today, we are looking at HOTFIX 1.2.2, which dropped about 10 hours ago for me. This thing is a certified banger. It has a whole bunch of add-ons, features, whatever you want to call it, that was brought into the game now. Some of the stuff was unexpected, at very least to me. But nonetheless, I think this is probably the patch that helps people who play the game solo or who don't have a dedicated group the most. It gives you the most control over your play experience. But I wanted us to go through all of the different sort of things that were added in here. It's not massive by any means, but like I said, some of these things are substantial. And I'll pretty much give you my, sort of like thoughts on each one of these changes. But first of all, let's just move the moneymaker to the right here. So we've got here basically saying, and this is, we're starting right off with the hot sauce. Molten Fortress and Gluttony intercept battles have been changed to allow for solo matchmaking. Now this of course means that they've modified these two encounters a lot. Obviously if they were in their group form version, playing it solo would be fucking suicide. But that means that these two battles can now be done by you solo. And looking at Molten Fortress, firstly, as you guessed it, you can totally dominate this boss with Haley. This is the Haley build for Infernal Walker, which works just as well with this. Haley was already really good against Molten Fortress in group-based content, but of course in solo, she absolutely shines. You don't even have to worry about the pylon phase. You can just breeze on through and murder the boss out before the frenzy even hits. But that being said, these are some of the adjustments that were made to Molten Fortress, meaning like, for example, the frenzy happens less often and there's less of the ads that spawn. And generally speaking, how the pylon phase works is a lot easier since you are a solo, meaning that once you lock them into position, they cannot be moved out of position. So you simply have to do one rotation. But if you run Haley, and this build for Haley is on my channel, by the way, then you don't even have to worry about the rage phase. Just push right through and get your loot. And that brings us on to Gluttony. Now, Gluttony's received several nerfs for the solo portion, right? So basically the impurity drawn, so this is the blobs that get pulled into him that you use to basically calm him down, has a much wider radius where it gets absorbed now. There's also pretty much some nerfs to the damage that Gluttony can deal in terms of like the swipes and stuff. Melee attack has a massive cooldown now. Instead of 5, it's 20 seconds. And pretty much its attack has overall been reduced by almost 50% at 47.4. Now, the good news is you can go dust off the old Lepic. Oh yeah, dude. So Lepic with the arm cannon, just basically you can 2-rotate on this boss. So you can just do like what you're seeing in the footage in the background right now, is you can just get a little bit of damage in. If you go full bore at the beginning, what's going to happen is you're going to hit the enrage. So what you can do is you can do a little bit of damage at the beginning, as you can see in the background. Then, just go jump off the nearest edge, come back with a full gauge, and then just go all in and absolutely burn Gluttony down. This is very, very doable. The build for Lepic that I'm using is also on the channel if you're interested. It's just a normal boss killer Lepic. I didn't do any, weird changes or anything. It does mean you are kind of glass cannony though, and even though they did nerf Gluttony, he can still slap. So obviously don't get hit too much, but this is huge. This means that if there's anything that you're still looking for from Gluttony, Gluttony also has a massive amount of drops and stuff that are tied to him as a boss. It means that if you have a Lepic, and I'm not saying that you need Lepic to do this, but Lepic is super easy. This was like, I think my 3rd or 4th attempt. I first just tried to brute force my way through, and I came up against the enrage every time. And then I was just like, wait a minute, what if we just do a little bit at the beginning and then just go quick? So I think as long as you can keep it under 45 to 50 seconds in terms of like the kill, you can get in underneath the enrage. And of course, be sure to hit the weak spots and stuff like that so that you can actually force him into a down state, which means that you can get way more damage from your balls of fire. But yeah, so these two changes make both of these bosses a lot more doable, at least in my opinion. Now, this, of course, depends on you as a player. If you find solace in the fact that you do group-based content because oftentimes other players carry you, then this might be a gut shot for you because it means that you would have to develop your own descendants to be powerful enough to do these. But that should be a good opportunity for you to also do so. But on the one side, I also kind of don't really think this is the best idea. And the reason for me saying this, and you guys might disagree with me, but it is what it is that we are starting to make the game super, super easy. And I know I'm gonna get shit for this, so fuck it. but the game is already easy enough as it is, and stuff like this just kind of like in the long run just reduces the need to, you know, farm and get geared up and everything like that to do the content because you needed to pull your weight in a group or something like that. Whereas you can do it solo now, and yes, it's easy and everything like that, but that also means that we hit that content wall sooner, right? In terms of like not having to improve your descendants anymore, or you don't have, you know, anything to do, which is like the major complaint and stuff like that. So I think this is like a, you know, a two-edged sword here. I on the one side, I like fucking pulling off these fast kills solo against these void intercept bosses who used to irritate me so much and, you know, forced me to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to beat them. And now new players might not necessarily experience that. I mean, they might, but probably not. The point is that I do think, like, in the long run, I mean, you know, this could be damaging. But that being said, this could also be a reaction from the developer to possibly, you know, just the player base slightly dipping or getting less by less over time as they look at the metrics. And so this is just a way to empower people to still be able to do the content without having to rely on groups, which they might not actually find in group find. I know for a fact queuing up for Gluttony about a week and a half ago took maybe like, and I'm in Europe, so took maybe anywhere between 55 seconds to I don't know, like a minute and a half, minute 45 at the worst times. And then sometimes those groups would be completely busted because it'll be like low level dudes or guys like level 7 and shit like that, not fully kitted. So that's a wasted fucking queue in any case. So yeah, it could just be that. But in any case, you know, let's see how this turns out. But for now, enjoy solo farming these fucking bad boys. If anything, it's a great way to test your build and to just test your playability and everything. And I'm all for that. Next is the big thing that we were actually waiting for this patch, and this is the long-awaited reactor changes, which basically mean that you can't roll dud reactors anymore. Okay, so previously you could have situations where you could have, like, for example, a fire singular reactor, and then that reactor rolls like fusion and fucking toxic power boost or something like that, which is a dead reactor by all means. There's literally no way you can pull that thing out of the fire. So now it says that attribute power boost random option can only be acquired from reactors of the same attribute, right? So that takes care of the attribute portion of it. And that means, you know, things like fusion, singular, bum, 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 right? Then next, the actual element ones can only be rolled from matching element reactors. So chill from chill, non-attribute from non-attribute, so on and so forth. So this means that, first of all, no more dead reactors from this perspective. You could still roll something like skill, critical hit, and fucking skill cost, which in my opinion is a dead reactor, but you could still roll that, of course. But the point is, you won't roll counterintuitive elements and fucking what do you call it, power attribute power boosts anymore, which were bricking a lot of reactors, which made them basically, you know, just useless. And then last but not least, HP heal modifier, which is really only used by Eugen, can now only be rolled on non-attribute, and that's used by Eugen. So huge as well. So they've diluted the rolling pool a lot, which means you'll get a lot more chances at decent reactors. Now, I've been playing since this dropped, since the patch dropped, for a couple of hours, and I've seen several really good reactors where previously it would take me like a week, maybe 8 to 10 days worth of playing to see like 1 or 2 or 3 really banger reactors. I mean, I'm a long time player, so it takes a lot for me to find a banger reactor, but you get my point. Whereas I saw several this morning and actually banked quite a few of them. So yeah, this is really good news, and I think this is going to be massive for players that walked away because this part of the whole loot grind disgusted them. If there was a reason, and I'm going to say this categorically, if there was a reason for you to come back and now start gearing up your descendants to start, you know, putting shit on farm and getting some of those kills that you couldn't before because you were stuck behind like a shitty reactor, now's the time, baby. Then there's some balance changes for descendants. Now, primarily these changes are for Keelen, okay? There is one for Sharon, which I think is massive. It's one of the things that I not complained about, but that I noticed when I did my Ultimate Sharon video, is that ambushed, when you use it, your active camouflage is 4 seconds the duration, which is not a lot, and it gives you a very, let's say, limited window of opportunity to, you know, throw a grenade out and secure a kill so that you get the refresh on your ambush or on your camouflage. That has now been upped by 2 seconds to 6 seconds, and that makes a big difference. I goofed goofed around with it a bit about an hour ago. It feels really comfortable now. Before, I mean, it was a rhythm that you could get into, but now it just feels like very forgiving. Like 6 seconds is, I feel, a substantial enough time. It's amazing the difference that 2 seconds can make, but yeah, huge. Then the rest of these changes are pretty much all to Keelen. And now Keelen's biggest, I would say, drawback in his prior state, so not now anymore, but in his prior state at the beginning of season 2 was not so much his power. Okay, I still think he needs a little bit of time in the oven in terms of like just his power output, but again, I haven't tested him much since this patch drop. But the other major issue was the massive cooldowns that all of his abilities had, including like I think it was hunting time had like 150 seconds on base, which was just completely unmanageable because you would have to spend so many mods, and there's not even enough mods in the game to make those cooldowns comfortable. And then the point is you sacrifice a lot of mod space to that, which means you don't have power, and so then you pale in comparison to some of the other AoE clearers. Now, first of all, his power has been upped as well, okay, with these changes, but a lot of the changes here are specifically related to his cooldowns. You can see across the board, Septic Gust 60 to 35, Tremor 80 to 60, and here's the bad boy I was talking about. Hunting time, 150 down to 55. This is huge. So I think this takes at least a lot of my complaints about Keelen off the table. And I'm super excited to get into him now. You guys can check out on the channel. I'll be bringing some updates on that. But to get into, like, you know, just seeing how far we can push him power-wise. But yeah, this is pretty big. Now, I do want to quickly say something specifically about this. Just what we're seeing here with the changes that they made. Something that I'm starting to notice, or have noticed for a while with this developer, is that it seems that at the beginning when they launch things, like whether it's a Descendant, whether it's a new activity or something like that, then oftentimes the difficulty or the grindiness or the usefulness of it is kind of bad. It reminds me of the seasonal, you know, powers that you got in season 1, which were like super bad, and they all had like fucking drawbacks and all this stuff. And then after the community like revolted against it and said, why is this even in the game, because it basically punishes me for picking it, fuck this shit, then they changed it and whatever. So it seems like we will, because it happened like 3 times now already, that we will always have this sort of like period, the first, let's say 2 to 3 weeks of a new activity, Descendant, something like that dropping, where it will feel like it's either stupid or it's punishing or it's not warding enough or it's shit. Like think about Haley's fucking grind, you remember that? So it just seems like it's something with this developer, like they launch it like that, and then you don't get too fucking upset about it, because within 2 to 3 weeks they're gonna make it easier. Now, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I guess it's a bit of both, but it is definitely something that's noticeable. And I wonder if there's not, the tinfoil hat time, I wonder if there's not some kind of like a strategy behind that. And that's the point, like they have it at the beginning in a certain way, and so your no-lifers, your people who would be there in any case, would be grinding it and, you know, fucking trying out everything and so on, and that gives them the data that they need to make the changes that they need. And then as soon as they do that, then they pull some of the casuals back in, and your people who are complaining like, no, this fucking sucks, so it's too difficult to do or something, and then boop, they're back because now it's not that difficult anymore. So in a way, you're like pleasing everybody, something like that. But in any case, just something that I was musing about as I was walking to the bus this morning. But then there's also another thing which was completely unexpected. You can now actually queue up for special operations solo as well. And the difficulty level will not be adjusted according to the number of players. So it's still going to be just as hard as it was for a 4-man team, or, you know, however it was for the group-based content, but now in solo. Now, I tested this a bit with the hard operations, and shit gets crazy. But this is also pretty big, because the point is a lot of the times you just want to do this content to test like AoE or something like that, or maybe you just quickly want to run one of these to just get a couple of levels into a gun or something like that. And this means that you can do that without necessarily, I use the term ruining the other player's experience. Like maybe you just want to do the first 2 or 3 waves or something like that, right? And then the point is you do the first 2 or 3 waves and then you back out, and then the other guys are like one man fucking down, and they have to deal with, like, you know, dealing with that punishment. So I think this is once again most likely a reaction to the fact that the player base is slowly, you know, diminishing, and this is a fact. A lot of people came back for season 2, but those people have also started to move on again, and it will kind of like be the way for this game like that. These games work like this, right? Division was like that, Destiny was like that, all of them work like this. You also have a big amount of players coming back at the beginning of a season to check things out and to farm what they want to farm and see what they want to see and get a boss kill or something like that, and then they go play some other shit, and then they come back again in about 60 to 75 days. So this might just be a thing to also just help the people that stay behind to not have issues with matching up and everything like that. For one, I think this is cool. I like fucking around in these with solo and seeing like just how good my build is and stuff, so huge for me. Then also just some changes to the sphere mechanic of commander monsters in all of these dungeons, so basically just making that a little bit easier as well. And then slowly like put in at the bottom here amorphous material patterns that can be obtained from outposts in each zone can now be earned as selectable rewards in infiltration operations in the same zone. So this was the next phase of the big outpost change, so now you can actually get those amorphous patterns from your infiltration operations as well, which absolutely gives you kind of like practically no more reason to actually do outposts. The next phase will then of course be what happens with outposts, so what will they do with those, and supposedly we will either get that in the second part of season 2, although no, probably not. It's probably going to be something like season 3. Then there's some UX changes and some miscellaneous stuff. Quick turn has now been added in for our controller bros, so if that's something that you were looking forward to, that is something that you can map now. Be aware though that that's not available straight off the rip. You actually have to go map it. And they've made Valby's evolving skin easier to achieve. So this once again just kind of like bolstering up my point before. They did this back in the day with Bunny's fucking evolving skin as well. I think they did the same thing with Ajax. So the point is, it launches, it has a certain amount of targets. People go like, bro, this is way too fucking much, this is too tough, we're not going to be able to make it, and then they drop the target down. So yeah, kind of like seems like a thing. And there are some bug fixes and stuff like that. I didn't really see anything massive. I'm just scanning over it now again quickly just to see if there's anything that really like jumps to my mind. There were some weird PC crashes that were happening with the target reward system and stuff like that. I had that happen to me once, so that's also supposedly been taken care of now. And yeah, just some other miscellaneous stuff, but that's pretty much it. I think this was, I mean, for a hotfix, this thing had some very patch like fucking qualities to it. So super awesome. A lot of cool stuff in here. Gonna have fun doing some of the stuff solo and testing the builds and just seeing how batshit crazy it can get. But thank you very much for watching. As always, the support with everything related to the First Descendant has been fantastic on the channel, and it's all thanks to you guys, so I can't thank you enough. Let me know in the comments down below what you are busy with in the First Descendant right now, and if this is the last video that you see of me before Christmas, Merry Christmas. I'll see you soon. As always, fucking cheers.